Or you just heard the president saying that Secretary Austin, General Austin, former general now, the Secretary of Defense, recommended this. But we've talked in the recent weeks about how the Pentagon was somewhat resistant because of the logistics involved, because of the resupply and the keeping the tanks and the training involved. How quickly the American tanks get there, and how big of a difference does the Pentagon think they can make?
The short answer to that is not quickly at all. These have to be procured, and then you have to train the Ukrainians on logistics, maintenance, operations of a complex system. And that's on top of all the new systems you already need to train them on. The UK Challenger tanks, the German Leopard tanks, US Paladin howitzers, the Patriot missile system. So it's not a rush to get these to the front. The other systems and Germany's Leopard tanks are their priority. But Biden did say they would begin training Ukrainian forces on the Abrams to make sure that when they're ready to go, Ukrainians can use them immediately when they arrive in country. John.
Warren Lieberman at the Pentagon, thank you. Let's continue the conversation, bringing two of our best. Nick Payton-Walsh joins us live from London. General Mark Hertling joins us as well. Nick, I want to start with you. You wrote a fantastic piece about the strategic implications of this for CNN. It's on the internet. I urge everybody to go to CNN.com and read it. You say this, among other things: it is a momentous decision, partly because these are not defensive weapons. They are intended to hit Russia's troops hard in a ground offensive. They are unequivocally about Ukraine retaking territory. This is a new and fierce, and it portrays a NATO unafraid. It's help for Zelensky that he's long asked for, but this is, as the President of the United States just said, a message to Vladimir Putin. You thought we would blink, you thought we would crumble, just the contrary.
Yeah, and it is, frankly, I have to say, after the weeks in which we've seen this diplomatic tussle with Germany reluctant to give authorization for Leopards to be used, manufactured in Germany, now being portrayed as kind of the leader of this European effort by Joe Biden. They're getting Leopard tanks to Ukraine as quickly as possible. Fundamentally, at the end, another sign of Western unity. Now, Joe Biden was clear there to talk about how this is not an offensive capability, suggesting essentially that Ukraine is always defending itself, even when it goes on the offensive inside its territory to kick Russia out. A valid argument, I think you would say, but certainly it shows that the West is no longer concerned about giving elements of its weaponry, which it might have closely guarded to potentially defend itself from an escalation by Russia. It does appear that most of those nations giving forward their advanced weaponry don't think they're necessarily going to need it to defend themselves in an escalation of conflict in the months or years ahead. And it also suggests that this consistent drip feeding from the Kremlin, the idea that some sort of escalation might follow if the West crossed some red lines that weren't to Russia's liking, that they're not really afraid of that anymore, that they've heard the nuclear rhetoric, they've challenged it openly, they've signalled against Russia's sort of nuclear blackmail, as some have referred to it, and they might start to begin to wonder now quite what else could happen. It's important to point out, though, that these tanks are not suddenly going to turn up overnight and radically change the battlefield. There aren't that many initially pledged. They will take months to put into training, certainly, and Joe Biden there was keen to point out that there'll be a lot of training happening now for Ukrainians to be able to get these complex logistical systems up and ready. This is a huge country with vast amounts of terrain to fight over, and to take tanks back potentially to repair depots that need some kind of refit. So a huge task ahead, but it does do one important thing, and it tells those in Moscow planning the months ahead that they have a very small window until Ukraine's weaponry gets incrementally and enormously better in its quality. And that is something I'm sure that will be weighing on the morale of those in Russia's military.
General Hertling, come in on that point. Your distinguished resume includes Commander U.S. Forces Europe, so you understand the capabilities here. You also understand the terrain here. What is the military significance here on the battlefield, and what message, as Nick just notes, does it send to Putin?
Well, I'm impressed by everyone's commentary on this, because you're getting it mostly right, John, both you and Nick. And what I'd say, tanks are primarily used for tactical offensive operations. Shock action, rapid maneuver, lethal firepower. They are both physically and psychologically intimidating when used, but here's the key point, when used correctly. And that requires the training. When we're talking about the numbers that have been bandied around this morning, the president just said that Germany is providing 2 tank battalions worth of equipment. A German tank battalion is about 44 tanks, so maybe you're talking 80 tanks from Germany. There are 13 other allied and partner nations in Europe that also use the Leos, the Leopard 2 tanks. So you could see other ones like Poland and other countries jumping on the bandwagon. President Biden mentioned the U.S. is giving 31 Abrams. That's one Ukrainian battalion, 3 companies of 10 plus an additional tank for the battalion commander. So we're talking about certainly a lesser number than General Zaluzhny, the chief of the Ukrainian ground forces, wanted. He asked for 300 tanks. I've kind of thought that the maximum they're going to get into Ukraine is about 100 to 150 early on. But the thing is, as Nick just pointed out, this is going to take a long time. The German Leos are a short-term solution. They can train up on them. It's a simple diesel engine weapon system. There is transferability, like Sam said. It's more, however, I'd counter what Sam said. It's more than just learning how to drive the tanks. There's a lot of mechanics involved in resupply and recovery opportunities here. The Abrams is much more complex, and that's a longer commitment to Ukraine. The Leos are probably going to get there within 2 to 3 months. The Abrams, I'd put the estimate on that in terms of what I know about maintaining and logistics support for Abrams. I'm going to say that's a longer-term commitment to Ukraine's continued military transformation. It's going to take between 6 to 8 months for those vehicles to get there.
So a reminder as we approach the 1-year anniversary at the beginning of this war that everybody expects it to go well into a second year as well as we go through this. General Hertling, Nick Payton Walsh, grateful for the important insights. And we'll continue to stay on top of this story as the tanks now will be delivered to the battlefield in Ukraine in the days, weeks, and months ahead.